Welcome to the Deep Dive. I am your host.
And I am your expert guide for today's topic.
So you know that feeling when you're just staring at a blinking cursor, the clock is ticking, and you finally decide to ask an AI for help with a crucial piece of writing.
Oh, absolutely. We have all been there.
Right, so you type in what you need, hit enter, and you wait for the magic. But instead of brilliance, what you get back is, well, it's a brochure.
Yes, a very shiny, very empty brochure.
Exactly. Just this completely generic, overly enthusiastic wall of text that sounds like a cheesy late-night infomercial.
Yeah, it's competent, sure, but it is utterly soulless.
It really is. It's the kind of output that makes you wonder why you even bothered using the tool in the first place.
It is a deeply frustrating experience. I mean, you come to the software expecting a collaborative partner, and instead you receive the most average, uninspired version of whatever you asked for.
And then you end up spending more time editing that robotic tone out of the document than you would have spent just writing it from scratch yourself. Exactly, which totally defeats the purpose.
Right. So that frustration is the jumping off point for our deep dive today. We are unlocking the true potential of artificial intelligence by mastering the art of the prompt.
It's such an important skill right now.
It really is. We're looking at a really unique narrative-style article by Aaron Rose. It was published on tech-reader.blog, and it's titled The Secret Life of AI, The Art of the Prompt.
And it's a fantastic read.
Yeah, and our mission today is to rescue you from the tyranny of generic AI outputs. We want to show you how to turn this incredibly powerful technology from a stubborn, frustrating search box into, like, the most precise tool in your arsenal.
What makes this particular source material so effective is that Aaron Rose, he totally avoids giving us a dry list of technical instructions.
Right. No boring bullet points here.
Exactly. He frames the entire lesson as a story set in this grand Victorian library in London, and that immediately makes the abstract concepts feel much more grounded. Yeah, so we're introduced to two characters in this library. There's Margaret, who is a seasoned, wise senior software engineer, and Timothy, her junior colleague.
And right at the beginning, Timothy is in full-blown panic mode.
Oh, yeah. He's sweating, his coat is still buttoned up, he's visibly stressed out, and he basically slams a piece of paper on Margaret's desk.
Because he has exactly 2 hours to write the opening of a business proposal for a new logistics client.
And this isn't just any client, right?
No, not at all. It is a highly skeptical client. They're a mid-sized logistics company that has been burned by technology projects in the past.
So they're defensive.
Very defensive. They absolutely do not want to be sold to.
Right. So Timothy tells Margaret he went to the AI for help. He tried twice, and both times the AI just spat out that generic, flashy sales pitch we were talking about earlier.
The brochure.
The brochure. So he tells Margaret his exact prompt. He literally just typed, "Write an opening for a business proposal for a logistics company."
Which seems fine, right?
Well, okay, let's unpack this, because on the surface, to anyone who has used a computer in the last 20 years, that sounds like a completely reasonable request. I mean, he told machine what he wanted.
It only sounds reasonable if you approach AI the same way you approach a traditional search engine.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, what Margaret points out to Timothy is that he didn't actually write a prompt. He gave the AI a category.
A category. Okay, explain that.
Well, what's fascinating here is the underlying mechanics of how a large language model responds to a broad category. When you type in business proposal and logistics, the AI dives into its massive data set.
Right, all those terabytes of training material.
Exactly. It essentially plots out every single business proposal it has ever ingested and calculates the statistical dead center of all that data.
So it's literally just giving you the statistical average, the midpoint of everything there is about that topic.
That is the core of the problem right there. The statistical average of a business proposal usually features, a highly confident opening, a polished value proposition, and an aggressive call to action.
Because that's what most proposals look like.
Right. It defaults to the structure that appears most frequently in corporate writing. The AI wasn't failing to answer Timothy's prompt at all.
It was doing exactly what he asked.
It was answering it flawlessly by giving him the mathematical center of the target. The result is technically competent and completely inoffensive.
But for a skeptical client who actively hates sales pitches, the statistical average is the absolute worst thing you could possibly put in front of them.
It's guaranteed to backfire.
Which brings us to this massive mindset shift that Margaret forces Timothy to make. And honestly, this is the shift we all need to make if we want to get better results.
It's foundational.
Yeah, we have to stop treating AI like a search box. It's like It's like walking into a restaurant, sitting down at a table, and telling the waiter, I would like food.
The waiter's going to have a very hard time with that order.
Right. If you just order food, the waiter could bring you a plain piece of white bread. And you can't even be mad at the waiter.
Because it is technically food.
Exactly. It fits the broad category you requested. But it is not what you actually wanted. You wanted, like, a medium rare steak with a side of peppercorn sauce. You have to specify.
That's a great analogy. And Margaret gives Timothy a really foundational piece of advice here. She says a prompt is not an instruction to a machine.
Okay.
It is a briefing to a junior colleague.
I love that framing. A briefing, not an instruction.
The distinction there completely changes the dynamic of the interaction. You see, an AI is not inherently creative in the human sense.
Even though it feels like it is.
Right? We project human creativity onto it because the text it generates reads like something a human would write. But under the hood, it is just an incredibly sophisticated pattern-matching engine.
Just hitting the center of a target.
Exactly. It is extraordinarily good at hitting the center. So you give it a massive target, like business proposal, the center is going to be incredibly broad and generic.
So our job as the person directing the AI is to shrink the target.
Shrink it down as much as possible. You want to make the target so incredibly small and specific that the dead center of it is exactly the nuanced, tailored piece of writing you need.
Right, because when you brief a human junior colleague, you don't just say, write a proposal and walk away.
No, you would give them the background. You'd explain the client's mood. You'd provide clear direction on the tone.
Okay, so because we now know we have to construct a proper briefing rather than just barking a command, we need a reliable framework to build that briefing.
And Margaret actually flips Timothy's paper over and writes down the 4 pillars of a perfect briefing.
4 single words. Who, what, how, not.
Let's break down the mechanics of these 4 pillars, using Timothy's logistics client as the testing ground. The first pillar is who.
Who is the audience?
Right. But Margaret stresses that this isn't just about defining the demographic category. It's not just, a logistics company.
Oh, so it goes deeper than that.
Much deeper. It's about defining the specific psychological state of the people reading the document.
So for Timothy, the who is an audience that is deeply skeptical, they've been let down by previous tech projects, and they possess a strong aversion to being pitched.
Exactly. That is real audience intelligence. And it completely changes the parameters for the AI.
How so? Like mathematically?
Well, when you feed the model that specific psychological state, it forces the AI to abandon the broad sales pitch cluster of its training data. It starts pulling probabilities from texts related to conflict resolution, empathetic communication, and trust building. You are mechanically filtering out the naive enthusiasm just by defining the reader's skepticism.
That makes total sense. Okay, so the second pillar is what? And the source points out this is where a lot of users trip up.
Yes, very often.
Because the what is not the format of the document. The what is not a proposal. The what is the actual job of the piece.
What does this text need to do to the reader?
Right. Timothy realizes the job of this opening section isn't to explain logistics or list pricing. The job is to make the client feel understood.
To validate them.
Yes, to make them feel like their past frustrations are valid and that they aren't just a target for another quick sale.
Which means you are shifting the AI from merely generating content to generating an experience for the reader.
Oh, I like that. Generating an experience.
If you tell the AI the job is to make the reader feel understood, it alters the vocabulary the model selects. It will naturally lean toward words that acknowledge history and validate concerns, rather than words that just boast about future features.
Okay, so that brings us to the third pillar, which is how. This dictates the tone, the voice, and the register of the writing.
Right, the vibe of the piece.
Yeah. So if the audience is skeptical and the job is to make them feel understood, how should the writing sound? Timothy decides the tone needs to be honest, direct, and slightly humble.
Which is perfect for that specific client.
So we have who, what, and how. That feels like a very solid, comprehensive briefing right there.
It does.
But then we arrive at the fourth pillar, which is not. What should the piece actively avoid? And here's where it gets really interesting. Because when I first read this part of the source material, I immediately wanted to push back on the concept.
I mean, it does seem a bit counterintuitive at first glance.
Right. If I have just spent all this time perfectly articulating the who, the what, and the how, like if I've told the AI exactly what I want it to achieve in the precise tone it should use, Why do I need to waste time telling it what not to do?
You'd think it would just know.
Exactly. Doesn't the AI implicitly understand that if I want a humble tone, it shouldn't use obnoxious marketing jargon? Telling it what not to do just feels, I don't know, entirely redundant.
I get that, but if we connect this to the bigger picture of how large language models are fundamentally trained, the not becomes the most critical pillar of the entire framework.
Really, the most critical.
Absolutely. Margaret drops a crucial line in the story. She says, the absence of a constraint is permission.
The absence of a constraint is permission. I never really thought about it that way.
It's a powerful way to look at it.
So by not giving it a hard boundary, you're essentially telling the AI it can run wild with its worst habits.
Precisely. You have to consider the sheer volume of the data these models are built upon. They have ingested vast, incomprehensible amounts of text from the public internet.
And a lot of the internet is garbage.
Well, a massive percentage of that internet text is SEO-optimized marketing copy, PR spin, corporate buzzwords, and empty promises.
Just a sea of marketing speak.
The AI is swimming in an ocean of polished, aggressive sales language. And because the model is fundamentally designed to be helpful and professional, it equates those shiny corporate buzzwords with good business writing.
Oh, wow. So it thinks it's doing a good job by giving you that jargon.
Yes. That is the statistical norm it has learned. Unless you explicitly forbid it, the model will inevitably drift back toward that polished jargon because it thinks that's what you want.
So by omitting the not, you are leaving the front door wide open for all that brochure garbage to sneak back into the text.
Exactly. You have to build a fence around the output. You have to explicitly instruct the model, do not use marketing language, do not use corporate buzzwords, do not make promises we can't back up with data.
You have to define what is out of bounds.
Or the AI's natural gravity will pull it right back into the marketing swamp.
Okay, so Timothy gathers all four of these ingredients. He has defined the who, the what, the how, and the not. But gathering the ingredients isn't the same as baking the cake.
Not at all.
The source material spends a lot of time diving into the architecture of the execution. Like, how do you actually assemble these four pillars in the text box? Because the order in which you present the information drastically alters the final output.
The structure matters immensely, and it's because of the mechanical way an AI processes information. Margaret gives Timothy a strict rule of thumb.
Which is?
Lead with the context before the task.
Okay, so she tells him to put the AI in the right frame of mind before actually giving it the instruction to write.
Mechanically, this is about understanding how these models process text. AI reads prompts sequentially, chunking your words into pieces of data called tokens.
Right, tokens.
Because it reads these tokens one after the other, the early tokens heavily influence the neurological pathway the model goes down to predict the subsequent words.
So the start of the prompt is super important.
Critical. If your very first sentence is write a business proposal, the AI immediately activates all those generic statistical averages we talked about earlier.
It's already decided what it's going to write.
Yes, it locks into the corporate sales pathway before it even reaches your nuanced constraints at the end of the prompt.
It's like sending someone running down a hallway and then yelling instructions at them from behind. They're already moving in the wrong direction.
That is exactly what happens. Conversely, if you start your prompt by describing the skeptical audience and then detail the purpose of making them feel understood,
You force the AI to load a completely different set of associations into its active memory first.
right, you are laying down tokens that activate empathy and directness. You put the model in a humble frame of mind.
And then, only after that context is fully established, do you introduce the actual task of writing the proposal.
It's setting the stage before bringing out the actors.
I love that. So Timothy follows this architecture. He types the prompt out in sequence. He starts with the audience, moves to the purpose, outlines the tone, establishes the constraints, and finally, at the very end, gives the task.
And the result is immediate.
The payoff in the story is fantastic. Timothy reads the output and his posture physically relaxes. The AI didn't give him a brochure. It gave him something measured, grounded, and highly targeted.
It actually worked.
It acknowledged the client's past trauma with tech projects without being overly dramatic about it. The opening line it generated was, "We have seen this before, and we would like to show you a different way through it."
It is a striking piece of writing. I mean, it didn't
Right.
try to sell a solution. It offered empathy and a path forward.
We have seen this before. That phrase just feels incredibly human. It proves the framework really works.
It absolutely does.
But the story doesn't wrap up perfectly right there, which introduces a major revelation about interacting with AI.
Right, because the first draft is rarely the final
Yeah.
draft.
Exactly. Even with this meticulously structured context-first prompt, the output was not flawless on the first try. Timothy notices that by the time the AI gets to the second paragraph, the writing starts to drift away from the humble tone.
And that drift is completely normal, especially as the model generates more text and starts losing the immediate influence of the initial prompt.
It just forgets what it's doing.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Margaret uses this moment to teach the final and perhaps most vital lesson. She says prompting is an ongoing conversation, not a single command.
Yes.
The first response you get from the AI is never a final verdict. It is merely the opening offer in a negotiation.
I think this is where so many of us, myself heavily included, go completely wrong. We treat the AI like a slot machine.
A slot machine.
Yeah, you put your prompt in like a coin, you pull the lever by hitting enter, and you wait to see what spins on the screen.
And if it doesn't line up?
Right, if it doesn't hit the jackpot of perfect text, what do? We just pull the lever again, we hit regenerate response, or we type something lazy like try again or make it better.
Which is so unhelpful.
We just keep spinning the wheels, hoping the random number generator magically lands on the exact combination of words we want.
This raises an important question regarding how we view collaboration. Think about how you would handle that exact situation with a human colleague in the real world.
Okay.
If a junior team member handed you a draft that was, say, 80% brilliant, but the second paragraph drifted off topic and started boasting about the company,
Yeah.
would you hand the paper back to them and just say, this is wrong, do it again?
No, that would be terrible management. The junior colleague wouldn't have any idea what part of the document failed or how to fix it. They would just guess on the next draft.
Exactly. You would be
Yeah.
specific with your human colleague.
Yeah.
You'd be directional. You would point to the exact problem area.
You give him notes.
You would say, the first paragraph is doing exactly what we need it to do.
Right.
But in the second paragraph,
Yeah.
you lose the thread. You're focusing too much on our credentials, and we sound arrogant. Rewrite just that second paragraph and make sure you keep the client's perspective at the center.
And Margaret explains to Timothy that the AI responds to that exact same kind of specific, localized feedback. It responds beautifully to precise direction, and it performs incredibly poorly when given vague dissatisfaction.
Yes. If you just tell an AI to make it better, the model has no idea what better means in your specific context.
It's just guessing.
It might assume better means more formal or longer, or it might just throw in more of those terrible marketing buzzwords it loves so much.
Right, so instead of just pulling the slot machine lever again, you have to open up the machine and tell it exactly which gears need turning.
You have to identify the specific gap between what you received and what you actually needed. Tell the AI what worked and exactly what drifted.
So in the story, Timothy tells the AI that the second paragraph shifts too heavily toward their own credentials. He instructs it to rewrite only that section, keeping the client's perspective as the focal point.
And how does it handle that?
Because he gives it specific directional feedback, while respecting the context already established in the first paragraph, the AI corrects the tone instantly.
It knew how to stay humble because he explicitly pointed out where it stopped being humble.
It's such a simple concept, but it requires a fundamental rewiring of how we approach the tool.
It really does.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to quickly recap the 4 most common mistakes that Margaret lays out in the source material so you can avoid them the next time you open up an AI window.
That's a great idea.
First, the category problem. Don't ask for a broad thing like a proposal. Describe what the thing needs to accomplish.
Right. Be specific about the job.
Second, missing the audience. If you don't provide a specific psychological profile for the audience, the AI invents a generic one, which guarantees generic text.
Nobody wants that.
Third, providing no constraints. Remember, the absence of a constraint is permission for the AI to use its worst buzzwords.
You have to build that fence.
And fourth, giving vague feedback on revisions. Make it better is a lazy prompt. Pinpoint exactly what needs to change.
Avoiding those 4 pitfalls is the exact difference between a frustrating, time-wasting experience and a highly productive collaboration.
So what does this all mean for you? It means that mastering this specific framework, who, what, how, not, is your ultimate shortcut.
It really is a game changer.
It stops the information overload. It saves you from hours of frustrating rewrites and throwing your hands up in despair when the machine doesn't just, like, read your mind.
Because it can't.
Right. If you can stop treating AI like a stubborn, magical search box and start treating it like a junior colleague that requires a clear, context-rich briefing, you finally unlock its actual power.
You really do.
You turn it into the most capable, tireless assistant you've ever had.
It is a profound shift in utility. But if we pull back and look at the trajectory of this technology, the source material leaves us with something quite deep to consider.
Oh, what's that?
Well, Margaret admits at the end of the story that it took her far too long to learn this framework because she stubbornly clung to the search box mentality.
Like so many of us do.
Right. Right now, today, making that shift, treating the AI as a junior colleague, is the absolute key to getting great results. But these models are not static.
They're constantly evolving.
They're growing exponentially more capable, more nuanced, and more sophisticated with every iteration. The dynamic we are learning to master today is going to shift again.
Wow, okay.
As the AI begins to deeply understand human psychology, market dynamics, and strategic empathy on a level that rivals human experts, well, what happens when we become the junior colleagues in that dynamic?
Oh, that is a wild thought.
How do you write a prompt for an intelligence that might soon understand the who and the what of your own business better than you do?
That entirely flips the script. I mean, we go from worrying about getting a generic brochure to wondering how to collaborate with something that outbriefs us.
It's something to think about.
We'll leave you to think on that. Next time you're staring at that blinking cursor, remember, don't just ask for food. Brief your colleague.